Hi, I am the co-founder of CrowdSurf,
director of events,
bass player,
video producer,
digital director,
songwriter,
manager of touring,
director of content and operations.
And you're listening to the Springboard
Music Podcast.
If you've listened to our earlier episodes, particularly episodes 2 and 3 of season 1, you're familiar with songwriter Lauren Hungate. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up at the start of this next episode is because our guest today is actually the author of an article announcing Lauren's signing to Concord and Chromatic Publishing. They truly mean it when they say Nashville is a little big town. LB Cantrell is an incredible writer and is the director of content and operations at MusicRow Magazine, a publication that has been around since 1981. How did you start into your current role at MusicRow?
Yeah, so I guess the best place to start is really, the beginning. In high school, I started writing, and I played like basketball and did a couple other things and wasn't really good at it. So I really wanted something to be good at. And I had always been a good enough writer. I always got really good grades in like language arts and English, but I never thought about doing it for fun. And I had this teacher who has since passed away. Her name was Tina Atkins, and she recognized that I was a pretty good writer. And she's like, "You really should write a blog or something, just to flex this muscle." And so I started a little blog that really helped me decide to be a writer. I got so much out of, putting my thoughts down to paper, not paper, but a keyboard. And so I decided I wanted to do journalism for my degree. And so I started college in Georgia, where I'm from, and just thought I would be a regular writer. I thought maybe I would write for CNN. That was in Atlanta, so I thought maybe that would be where I would go. And I always had loved country music.
That's a cool dream, first of all. That's an amazing dream to write for CNN.
Yes, I wanted to do, I was, we toured that in elementary school. So that was just like what came to mind as like, this is what writers do. I probably would have changed my mind eventually, but anyway.
Was your blog like news oriented, or what did you write about?
It was like an essay blog. So I wrote about like prom in a way that was like what is experienced at prom or whatever. Not like this is what I wore or whatever, but more like, what's it like to come together with these people that you might never see again and that kind of thing. And I wrote about, there was a kind of a scandal that happened in my hometown that I felt was really unfair, that the people that were being kind of thrown under the bus didn't really deserve it. And kind of wrote about that. Just kind of piss people off.
But that's journalism. That is journalism.
It was just, angsty essays and stuff. I've since taken it down, but it did really help me learn how to, I think what I learned was that I could connect with other people through writing, and I could really express myself and also learn things about myself through writing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be a writer. I didn't know in what way, but I just wanted to do it in some way. So I went to college and I started my journalism degree, and I always really loved country music, but I had never, ever thought about moving to Nashville, ever. Like that wasn't ever on my radar, but I was super into songwriters, and I would like watch CMT, and the credits would say, written by Shane McAnally or written by Nicole Gallion or Natalie Hemby or whoever, Casey Beathard. And I would like search these people on Instagram or whatever and follow them because I was interested that they were writing these songs, but they weren't the star. And that just intrigued me. So during this time, I was like following songwriters on Instagram and kind of started observing what that was. Still never putting the two together, just kind of at the same time. But I took a class I started at Georgia College in Georgia, and the class was a music appreciation class, something that people usually don't care to be in, like an art appreciation, just an elective. So in this class, we did everything. Like we went through the history of music from like the Gregorian chant to I think we got through like the 20s. So,
Oh my
and it was
goodness.
the best class. I just loved it so much. And I was probably the only person in the class that even showed up most of the time. It was an elective and nobody really cared about it. And one of the assignments for that class was to go to like 6 concerts throughout the semester and cover them. And they weren't necessarily like rock concerts. They were like orchestra and jazz and whatever. But I really enjoyed writing about the shows. And my music appreciation professor was like, "Hey, you kind of got have a knack for this." So that was another thing that kind of just led me in the direction. And then during my freshman year, my mom somehow or another stumbled upon MTSU, which is a college around here that has a music business program. And I was like, well, that's cool. Whatever. Can't afford that.
You're like, Mom, I'm already in school.
Yeah,
I'm already out of college.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, well, I think you can get in-state tuition because of something called the academic common market. So basically, if a public university in Tennessee and a public university in Georgia don't have a program, they can switch students. And so I was able to get in-state tuition to go to MTSU. So
okay, that's a good little heads up for people listening.
Yes. So look, if you want to go somewhere, it has to be public, and the states have to have an agreement. So I think Tennessee has several states that they agree with. I know Georgia's one of them.
Wow.
And so if a public university doesn't have a program like that, you can trade. So that's definitely something to look out for, because I wouldn't have been able to do it if not. So I transferred. And so I got to MTSU and just loved it. It was just the best experience. We studied, contracts and legal issues. We studied the business of publishing. We took classes like, the history of the recording industry and, just so many great classes that really I use a lot of the info today. And I pretty much knew from then on that I wanted to be a music business writer. And so that was kind of how I got started. And then quickly started reading MusicRow. I had always read Billboard as a fan. I had never read it like religiously, but I knew what it was. And didn't know what MusicRow was until I got to college. But once I learned, I read it every day. And was like, okay, that's where I should be, because that's exactly that. It's, this writing aspect and this music business aspect.
So, because I feel like that's also kind of what Billboard is and their articles. What intrigued you about MusicRow versus Billboard in that way?
That's a good question. I don't think at the time I probably was more partial to one over the other, but as I went on, I realized that I really wanted to be very Nashville centric. And Billboard has some Nashville people that are here and reporters. But to my understanding, I don't think they have an office. MusicRow has been on MusicRow since 1981. And the more that I learned about this publication, the more that I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to help tell the stories of this group of people who are making country music in Nashville. And that doesn't just mean the artists and songwriters, but also the business people, the publishers and agents and label personnel and managers and the whole 9 yards. I really got intrigued of being, part of the service that does that for the community. So that's kind of what intrigued me. And Billboard definitely, does that as well. But I felt like MusicRow, and still feel like MusicRow is, our roots are planted deep. We're here and we're the trade for this community. So the more that I learned about it, the more I was like, okay, this is the kind of place that I'd like to be. But yeah, so I just started, working towards how can I make myself, I started thinking about how can I make myself attractive to MusicRow Magazine. For one thing, I kept reading MusicRow, so that was helpful. I knew I needed to like know a lot by the time that I got
Was there
here.
like a certain style that you had learned?
Not necessarily. I think I was absorbing so much at the time that I was I still feel like I'm creating my own style. And it is very much from absorbing other great writers and other great reporters and other people who've either mentored me or I read their writing. So I think at the time I was really, really spongy and that I was like reading everything. I was reading Billboard, I was reading MusicRow, I was reading Rolling Stone, Hits Daily Double. I mean, I still read all of these, but the Tennessean, Country Air Check, all of them, Variety. I was just reading as much as I can. For one thing, too, because I knew that it would help me, but also because I'm interested in it. It's something at this point that if I don't read those things, I'm like, what's going on in the world? It's like part of my daily life now. But so I was doing that, taking classes. I had to work because I'm, had to pay for my life. So I was working at the golf course in that town, which was such a fun job. I was tutoring, and I was interning here. I got an internship here.
Wow.
So that was a really busy time.
Here in Nashville or here like MusicRow?
Yes. Yeah. So I applied for an internship.
What?
Yes. I probably should have mentioned that. But so I let me back up. So during college, an opportunity came up to volunteer for the CMA Fest thing. Mm-hmm. And I did that several times, and I would recommend that to anybody as well, because that was a good experience for me, and you get paid for it, which I needed.
It's a grind, it's a hustle, but you meet so many people, and it's such an iconic event in Nashville. So to really know what it's like is incredible knowledge.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to experience those things, even if they seem like a lot of work or they're hard to get into or whatever. That's something to experience, definitely. So when I was volunteering, I don't know if I had put down my interest on the applications or what, but somehow I got put in the job of checking in media for one of the shows. I was literally like,
it's a good job.
I was, in college talking to these reporters as they checked in to interview artists. So I was getting to see kind of that process and meet some of these people I've been reading. And I met Billboard's Tom Rowland, and he, I recognized him right away because I had been reading his columns for a while. And I was like, "Are you Tom Rowland?" He's like, "Yeah." And so we started talking and kind of just hit it off on, music opinions and, music business talk or whatever. And throughout that week, he would stop by and talk to me every time he came through. And I had these little business cards at the time because I don't know if this is like this at other schools, but at MTSU, especially in the music business program, everybody has business cards. All the students. It seems like, I don't know, we're just like little mini business people running around.
Yeah, that was not a thing for me in college at all. But I recently went to a college event for like students who want to get into radio. And at the end of the conference, they were all handing me their little business cards. And I was like, oh,
it's great.
Oh, it's amazing because, if I want to reach out about an internship or whatever, it's genius. It just was not a thing at my school.
I was surprised too, but now I'm thankful, obviously. But it's so funny because they had little like cactuses were in at the time. And so they had like cactuses. Anyway.
Do you still have one as just like a little like memento from that time?
I mean, they were cute, but no, I'm like, that was so silly. But anyway, so the last day, I wrote on a business card before I got to CMA Fest because I was like, I am going to shoot my shot with Tom Rowland. And so
Yes.
I wrote on the business card, if you ever need anything, call me. And I put my number or circled it or whatever. And so at the end of the week, I gave it to him and I was like, actually, I don't think for some reason, I think I got moved that night. And so I gave it to somebody else who was there. And I was like, can you please give this to Tom Rowland? He did. And so about a week later, Tom called me and he was like, hey, I don't know if you I can't help you get an internship or anything. He's like, but if you're interested, I could probably pay you to transcribe my interviews. And so basically and I obviously said yes, but basically what would happen is he would do an interview and he would send me the audio from the interview and I would type it out. And then he would use it for his articles. And that way he didn't have to transcribe, which is like every journalist's least favorite thing to do. And so I did that for I would say at least 2 years. While I was interning.
What a great experience too, though, because you learned the questions he asked.
Yes. I learned so much from listening to his interviews and then reading his write-up. So I would get a full class on what he asked, how he led the interview, and then what he used, and how he wrote it. So I just got to see the whole process. And so we did that forever. I probably did at one point, probably 4 interviews a week. So I would do that, in addition to all the other things I was doing. And
I mean, that had to take hours to transcribe.
It did. And I got faster at it eventually. But yeah, it does take a while, especially when you're starting out, because you're just like, pause, play, pause, play, pause, play.
I'm curious because now there are programs where you can just have it transcribed for you while it's recording. Is what you were doing still a common practice, or are those programs more?
Well, I will say I use one of those programs now because it takes I would say it does about 60% of the work. It's not anything you can rely on. You can't take a sentence from the web automated transcription and depend that that's what they really said, because it messes up a lot. So me and Tom got to the point where I was using that service and then just fixing the things that were wrong eventually. But for probably a year, it was just doing the audio. But those services they're probably getting better. And it depends on how good the audio is. If you do something over the phone, usually it's not as great, but if it's in person, sometimes it's better. But yeah, for about 2 years, I did that. And he was really gracious with me, especially towards the end. He would meet me for coffee every now and then. He would read my writing and let me know, ways I could improve. He took me to a Garth Brooks show one time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I had never covered a big show like that. And I didn't cover this one, but he just took me as a guest. But I got to go not backstage. I got to go to a party underneath Bridgestone with Garth and Trisha and everything.
So fun.
And we just had a blast. And he was just so giving with his time and energy and resources he had no reason to be, but I learned so much from him. And then during that time, I applied for an internship at MusicRow and got it. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got there. And the internship kind of just led to this. So that's pretty much the intro.
And this is Director of Operations and Content.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about that because I was reading a little bit about your blurb on LinkedIn, and you had mentioned day-to-day operations and then also large-scale projects.
Mm-hmm.
The question's twofold. Day-to-day operations, I think it's something we all hear, and we all hear chief operations officer or whatever. Mm-hmm. Not that that's what you are, but we hear operations all the time. And I think I don't really totally understand in the day-to-day what that is.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned large scale projects. And when we think about online journalism, we just think, in the most basic of senses, it's a credible blog. So what are like the large scale projects that really go into MusicRow?
Yeah. Well, to explain that a little bit, I'll take you kind of through my evolution here, which will kind of give you some context. So when I joined as an intern, I did, what usual interns do. I wrote a little bit, but I mostly just helped with whatever and loved it. I mean, I loved it so much. I did it 3 days a week for free, coming from Murfreesboro, and loved it. Would stay all week if they would have me. But it ended and I didn't get a job. And so I went back to school and was like, okay, well, I really thought I was going to charm them into a job. What do I do now? So I was like, I had made a connection with someone at the Tennessean in their country music department. And I was like, well, let's try that. And so I tried to get an internship going there and I couldn't get it done. I just could not get the paperwork to go through or not to go through. I couldn't get them to send it to me. And so I emailed our owner here, Sharon Robertson, who I didn't really have much of a relationship with when I was interning. And I was like, hey, remember me? I was like, can you send the Tennessean a note and, say I was an okay intern because I'm trying to get this internship. And he was like, well, I can, but if you want to come work here part-time, like while you finish college, I'll pay you. I've got some things, that I've got on my list. And I was like,
what? Well, and you're like, wait. Where was this when I was trying to charm you into a job a couple months ago?
I know. I was like, he's like, I got a couple projects I've been working on. If you want to come while you're finishing college, you can do that while you're finishing college. He kept saying that. I was like, okay, here's my chance to get in again. So I came back and I, at the time, was his assistant. That was my title. And that's really where my story changed because we really hit it off. And we are now, he is my biggest mentor, my number one person that I go to. And he's a friend and he's a boss and he's a family to me. So anyway, that's kind of where we kind of hit it off. And so
all because you took a risk to message, the head honcho, the person that you didn't necessarily have the strongest relationship with, but you knew had the most power to get something done. You were like, hey, what do I have to lose? I'll just message him.
That was exactly my thought process is, at the very least, he won't respond. So, I came back and I started doing some projects and kind of learning some things. And a couple months later, he's like, okay, I don't really have a job for you, but I'm going to make a job for you because I think you've got a future here. And so he made a position for me called project manager. And so at the time, this is kind of where the large scale projects comes in. So at the time I started, one thing that we needed done was we have, we've been around since 1981. We have print issues since 1981. And a large portion of the ones from, 81 to 2012 were not digitized. So we don't have them anywhere digitally.
Wow.
And so one of his projects was to scan those old issues so we had them digitally, just in case something ever happened, and also so we can use them, and for research or refer back to them or whatever. So that was something. I started our Instagram. We didn't have an Instagram, and I thought that was so silly, so I started an Instagram. And then we had our MusicRow Awards had always been this really small reception at BMI or ASCAP lobby or CSAC. And we really wanted to make it a big event. And so I planned our first big MusicRow Awards. That was the biggest thing I did during that time. Now we don't do that. We've decided to make that virtual because of the pandemic, and it just worked during the pandemic. But at the time, that was what the plan was, to make it big. So we had one really big MusicRow Awards. So those were some of the things. And then, let's see, after that, he made me director of content. And that was when, at the time, while I was being project manager, I was also writing a lot. And he made me director of content, which basically functions as an editor. So I decide what stories we're going to run any given day. I pick our print issue stories. And then I also kind of oversee our socials and like, I don't oversee advertising, but I like help with getting it actually put on the site, like the manual parts of it. So that kind of all falls under that umbrella. And then a year later, he added director of operations too. And so that means basically I oversee the team. I help with support the team in whatever they need. I oversee our subscriptions, basically the functions of the magazine, which I can go into now that you kind of see how that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So basically, what we do, the basic function of what we do, is we run anywhere from 10 to 15 news stories a day. We break
Wow.
them up, into like a morning email blast to our subscribers and then a afternoon email blast to our subscribers. So we break them up. And then, so that's like the most primary function of what we do. We also have a couple different charts. We have our country breakout radio chart, which is a chart for secondary radio. And we have someone who oversees the chart. I'm just here if she ever needs anything. I'm here to support her. And then we have our top songwriter chart, which ranks.
I love that.
Yes, it ranks songwriters every week based on radio airplay, digital downloads, and streaming. And so we oversee
I love that chart so much.
It's a great chart. It's a really valued part of what we do.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have 6 print issues that we produce every year. So we have, they're themed, but they've been around forever. We have like the one we're working on right now is our January issue, which is the country radio and streaming issue. So everything's focused on country radio and streaming, obviously. We have like a touring issue. We have a publisher issue. So those magazines are focused on those sectors of our business. And then we have our biggest issue is our In Charge directory, which is a directory of about 400 people. And so that's really the main things we do is the news, the print issues, our charts, and then events. So we had MusicRow Awards, which is now virtual. We had the Country Breakout Awards, which is our country radio awards, which is also now virtual. And then we have Rising Women on the Row, which is in person. So
I've seen some posts about that, and I love that so much. Can you explain what Rising Women on the Row is?
Yeah. So Sherrod started Rising Women. Let's see. Next year will be our 10th year, but it's not technically 10 years ago because of the pandemic. I don't exactly know what the year was, but next year will be our 10th. But he started it because he has had a really sweet relationship with his grandmother, who was just like this awesome woman who he felt like never got proper recognition for just the life she lived. So he, with a platform like MusicRow, he was like, we need to come up with something that honors women, not when they retire, but while they're still doing it, while they're still rising. So he started it, and basically we started honoring 5, now we honor 6 women who are they're rising in the music industry. So they are, we say they're on a trajectory of excellence, but they're like at the top of their game, but they still have a long way to go. They still have lots they are going to do because they're that awesome. So we've had, the women that we've honored have gone on to be, like Cindy Mabe is now president at UMG, and Chris Lacey is now, overseeing Warner with Ben Klein. She was one of our honorees. And we have, Beth Laird has been one, and E.B. McFarland. And there's just been a lot of really awesome women that we've gotten to honor, Lou Taylor and a bunch of others. So yeah, it's a really awesome thing that we do, something that probably, it takes a lot of work, but it's like one of the most rewarding parts of the year, getting to listen to them, speak and see people come and support them. So it's a great thing we do.
What I love about this conversation with you is it's so much more than just an online publication. It's so much more than articles every day. It really, really, really is a community. And that's kind of what drew you to it in the first place was Nashville specific. It's country music specific. It's here in the heart of MusicRow.
Mhm.
And it's a community for those people. Who would you say are your target subscribers? And then also your target, who are your main competitors? Is there anybody doing what you do? And what would the competition be? Just getting the news out faster?
Yeah. So our main reader base is, it's interesting because we report on the Nashville music business, but our readers are also the Nashville music business. So, the industry at large subscribes to us. And then we also have some, we have some country music fans that follow us, in that these are the kind of fans who want to know who Carrie Underwood is writing with for her next album. They're really super, super fans. So that being said, our competition, I would say, I guess Billboard is partly our competition in that they report similar news, but it's a different, we're two different entities in that we are really in the community, and they, they have people here too, but it's just a different thing. We are really a community service. That's at least the way I look at it. And then, there's others that run music business news, but we are, we're the leading trade for this community.
You have been for decades.
Yes, for decades. And then as far as getting the news out faster and stuff, that is probably the benchmark, I guess, that people will look at between any publication competition or getting exclusives on things. But my thing is, as far as getting something out first or getting a scoop on something, I am 100% more in favor of getting it right than getting it first.
Yes.
Because there are times when other outlets will run something that hasn't been confirmed. And we've been guilty of this too. I'm not saying that we're not, that we're perfect, but I would rather wait, another hour or two and make sure it's true before I blast it out to people who have influence, to people who read us and, depend on us being true, being right. So that's always my motto, is make sure that we confirm it. If we hear somebody passes away, we're confirming that. We're not going to run that without knowing for sure. And that, recently happened with Jerry Lee Lewis. That something came out that he passed and he hadn't yet. And so that was something I was so thankful that I was actually not in the office and my team knew to confirm it before they ran it, which was I was really proud of them for. Because we don't want to do that. Even if we're slower than another outlet, or if we don't get the breaking news first, we have built the reputation that when it comes from us, it's real.
It's incredible. And that's why you're the leading publication in this space for, I think it's 34, 35 years, for so long. You're a trusted source.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about what your role is, and it was really designed for you. So it would be really hard for somebody, I think, to go online and be like, I want to become the director of operations and content at a publication. I don't know if that's possible, but who would be a good fit for what you do if they come across director of content or director of operations?
Yeah.
What are what type of person would be the right one for that?
Well, I'll say, you kind of are right in that I've kind of developed this role in a way, and Sherrod has as well for me. But to work, I will answer it this way: to work at a place like MusicRow, you have to be a country music fan. You cannot not be a country music fan. That just doesn't work. You have to want it more than you have to want it. You have to want to go to all the things And it shouldn't just be a, well, I have to do this because, this is part of it. It should be I'm excited that I get to go be a part of a number one party. I get to go cover a number one party. Who gets to do that? So if you're the kind of person who wants it, who wants to be in those rooms and meet those people and tell those stories, then that you're the right fit for this kind of place, because the skills will come. It's mostly about the passion, the work ethic. Obviously, I'm not naive to the fact that you have to have someone open the door for you. There's lots of people who have passion and want it and have work ethic that can't get a door open. So I would say, another thing is you have to be a little bit fearless in that you will ask for what you want, or you will email somebody and say, hey, I really want to do something like what you do. Can we get coffee, or can I Zoom with you for 15 minutes, or, I'd love to pick your brain or whatever. So I think someone like that has, those things, and that like gumption is the right person for these kind of positions. Obviously, you probably should be a good enough writer, but that I think skills come. You can teach people things like that, but you can't teach passion, and you can't teach work ethic. It's just kind of part of you.
And I think we're all guilty of this. It's human nature. We think when we're applying for a job or getting hired for a job, we're expected to come in totally equipped and able and competent because they're paying us to do this job. And that's just such a misconception. Yeah. Everybody plans for a training period.
Yeah.
Everybody plans for skills to be developed. So don't let, the fear of, not being good enough in writing keep you from something that you're really passionate about if you believe that you're the right person to do it.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say the biggest thing too is like, I'm still learning. I will be learning until I'm dead and gone, I'm still learning skills and how to handle difficult situations, and, how to, do certain things. But I think the biggest thing for people who are applying to jobs is just to be coachable, just to not take correction personally, because nobody means it personally. It's just, part of learning, and to be, eager to learn and coachable. I mean, that's like, if I come across somebody who's like that, I'm like, ooh, what are you doing after college?
You started with the blog and got some reps in. I think, and maybe you didn't do this, but I think having some place to point your future employer to see your work is beneficial and kind of sets you apart, because it's a little less of a gamble if your resume isn't totally built up, if they can see your potential. What other ways could somebody start gaining experience in high school or college if they hear this interview and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to be LB. I want to do what she's doing.
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is doing extra writing, even if it's not assigned. So like, if you want to be a writer specifically, join the school paper, hard stop, do that, because I learned so much, because I did the paper at both the colleges that I was at. And I mean, I read some of those stories occasionally. I'm like, oof, they were not great. My poor editor. But you learn so much during that time. And it shows your potential editor or your potential employer that you did more than what was required of you in college and high school, because that shows initiative, and that you have a goal and a purpose that you want to fulfill in your life. And that means a lot too. So if I, come, someone say I had a writer position open, I don't, but if I did, and someone was sending me their resume, but they also had stories in their college paper, or they also were writing a blog, or they were also maybe even writing a blog where they cover concerts. That would show me, I mean, if I see that and I, see, well, they've bought tickets and gone to the show and written about it, even though they didn't have to, with no one paying them for it, that really shows me that someone is trying to make something happen. But yeah, just get involved, do extra things. I mean, not high school, in early college, one of my dad's friends, he's an attorney, and he had to write a policies and procedures manual for a water board authority in my hometown.
Ew.
I know. It was like, ugh. But he called me.
No.
Yes. He called me and he was like, I know this isn't probably the kind of writing you want to do, but would you want to come help me write this manual? And I learned a lot from that about contract language,
You said yes?
Yeah. I said yes to everything because I just always thought, and I still do, that I'll learn something from it, that might help me one day, or maybe it doesn't, and I make a few extra bucks, or maybe it doesn't, and I meet somebody that I might, get to know or need to know later. There's always opportunities in things, if you just, I mean, that's not to say that, there's not things that I've done that have been like, that was kind of silly, but yeah, I mean,
but it's a good party story, so that's
yeah,
okay.
exactly. I mean, there's definitely been things that I've been like, why did I say yes to this? But more often than not, I've needed it down the road, and that that manual had contract language in it that helped me understand musical contracts.
So you started reading MusicRow, you loved it, you got the internship, you didn't initially get the job, you took the risk, reached out to the owner, and worked your way up, been there ever since. Would you say, looking back and looking where you are now, that you're living the dream?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this role is a lot of work, and I won't lie, there have been periods of time that has been really hard because I'm young, and have been, very graciously given a lot of responsibility. So there has come a lot of stress and doubt, and even other people thinking that I didn't deserve it. And there's been a lot of things that I've had to kind of toughen up with, but I absolutely am living the dream. I mean, I get to talk to everybody that I ever admired, and not even just artists, but business people. I mean, the people that make this music and that promote this music, and, the publishers and label people. I mean, this community is so special and unique in that, they talk to each other. They're not, even though they're competitive, they're not ugly with each other most of the time. And I get the very privileged position of getting to be, of service to all of them. And I get to report their stories, get to know them, interview them occasionally. And so I get to know everybody in the industry. So I love getting to go to like concerts and number one parties and walking in and being like, I know a lot of people here because I've been able to get to know lots of different facets of our industry. And it's just, I can't imagine doing anything else. I mean, I'm 26 and I can't imagine doing anything else.
How incredible that you've achieved your dream job at 26 as well. I know for me, when I achieved my dream job in my mid-20s, I had a bit of fear, and a little bit of a quarter life crisis, as I called it, of where do I go from here?
Yeah.
I've achieved it. Do you have any bit of that? Or are you like, no, this is it. I'm riding this till I retire. This is awesome.
I do sometimes because I'm like, surely this can't be like, it's like a pinch myself kind of thing where I'm like, surely something's around the corner that's going to bite me. Like, this is not, how could I already be here? And that's not, one day it may all crash and burn, who knows? But I definitely have goals for myself that work hand in hand with MusicRow. I have goals for MusicRow, that I really want to see happen, and I'm working on now. I've had some that I've, even already done in that I really wanted our I really wanted to focus more of our content back on the industry, and we definitely want to focus on the artists as well. But I really wanted to give another place for the music industry to be highlighted. And we started the My MusicRow Story column, and our owner is who came up with that. But it was out of a need for us to find a way to focus again on the industry. And so I've gotten to talk to everybody for that column. I mean, it's like been one of the biggest blessings to get to sit down with these people and listen to their story, And but yeah, sometimes I do think, sometimes I'm like, am I like in the job I'm gonna have for the rest of my life? But I don't know.
But you love it, so that's okay if you are.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you're into the Enneagram at all, but I'm an Enneagram.
Yes.
Okay, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, which can be a really restless number. So sometimes I do have those days where I'm like, wow, I can't believe I'm already here, and I kind of have some struggles with that. But at the same time, this job is really multifaceted. And so I get to like flex different muscles throughout the day. So I definitely, writing is my favorite part by far. Writing and interviewing is my favorite part. So I get to do that, but I also get to do a lot of administrative work, which is really, soul filling too. I mean, getting to like work on our subscription model and see how we can expand and see what we can do to get people to subscribe and, come up with different deals and different, ways to make our membership bigger is part of, that's also very interesting to me. And then, we have 6 print issues. So as soon as we're done with one, we move on to the next. So it's the pace of it is good for my brain, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you're constantly moving and constantly doing something else, which is good for an Enneagram 7.
It is. If I was having to do the same thing every day, I think I would get tired of it. But I mean, every print issue is different. We do different stories. I mean, I get to, yesterday morning, Luke Bryan's publicist emailed me and was like, hey, Luke just had his 30th #1. Do you want to help us, break that and do a little exclusive interview? And I was like, yeah. So it's like, you never know what the day will bring.
Thank you so much for listening to the Springboard Music Podcast. We truly would not be here without you. If there's something that resonated with you in this previous episode, or there's a future episode you would love for us to create, please message us at Springboard Music on Instagram.